Hello and welcome to the show. My name's Sam with Philosophy Tree. This video is the first in our series on Plato's Republic. The Republic is, without contention, one of the most well-known books in philosophy, arguably one of the most influential in Western literature. And so today we'll be looking at Book 1 of Plato's Republic, and we'll be giving a brief summary of that book as well as analyzing the contents of it. So before we delve into the book itself, it's imperative that we look at the characters involved. First and foremost, there's Socrates. Socrates, as we know, was Plato's teacher, and he's the narrator of the book. Then there's Cephalus. Cephalus is a wealthy businessman. He's the father of Polemarchus, and he represents the older, more conservative, traditional aspects of Greek life and Greek thought. His son Polemarchus is the complete opposite of him. Polemarchus is young, he's ambitious, and he represents that vigorous character of the younger generation. Thrasymachus is the main antagonist of the book, and he is a sophist. If you don't know, the sophists were philosophy teachers in ancient Greece around this time. However, they often charged for their lessons, and they were seen as greedy and very superficial by philosophers like Socrates and Plato. And then there are a few minor characters which aren't terribly relevant to the story. There's Cleitophon, who is Thrasymachus' friend, Thrasymachus the sophist. Then we have Adeimantus, who is Polemarchus' friend, and in real life he was Plato's brother. Glaucon, he's another one of Plato's brothers, and in the story he is Socrates' friend and companion. So at the start of the book, the setting is Athens, 5th century before the Common Era, the time of Socrates. Socrates, the narrator of our story, and Glaucon are walking back from a religious festival in Athens. And on their way back, they are stopped by Polemarchus, the ambitious young nobleman, and his friend Adeimantus. And they get to talking. Polemarchus persuades Socrates to come to his house and visit his father, Cephalus, whom Socrates had previously known. So Socrates arrives at their house, and he begins a discussion with Polemarchus' father, Cephalus. They talk about the merits of old age and of wealth before they get to the topic that's really burning on Socrates' mind, and that's justice. When asked to define justice, Cephalus says that justice is fulfilling your obligations and living honestly. And this is something Socrates would have heard. This is a very traditional, a very conservative Greek definition of justice for the time. That justice is simply paying your debts, not transgressing others, kind of minding your own business. Socrates is able to refute this definition fairly quickly, and he does it through this example. Say you're holding weapons for a friend. This friend comes to you in a fit of rage asking for their weapons back. You know that they're going to either hurt or kill someone, but if justice is fulfilling your obligations and paying for your debts, then the only just thing for you to do would be to give them those weapons back, knowing that they're going to go commit murder. Cephalus admits that this is not justice, and so this definition will not stand. After this, Cephalus leaves, and Polemarchus takes over the conversation. When asked to define justice, Polemarchus says that justice is helping one's friends and harming one's enemies. What we need to realize here is that while Cephalus' definition was a conservative, a traditional definition, his son Polemarchus' definition is the view that would have been held by many of the young, ambitious politicians of the time. After hearing this, Socrates then asks Polemarchus what he means by friends and enemies. And Polemarchus responds that the good are our friends and the evil our enemies. And it's at this point where the flaw in the argument starts to be seen. Socrates gets Polemarchus to admit that our judgment about good and evil is flawed. We're not always right about what or who is good or who is evil. And so some of our friends are bound to be evil, some of our enemies are bound to be good. And these enemies that are good, if we are punishing good people, that can't be just. And if we're helping evil people, that can't be just. And so this definition of justice cannot stand. It's at this point that Thrasymachus, the sophist, enters the picture, and he comes forward with a very relativist definition of justice. Justice, he says, is simply the interest of the stronger. It has nothing to do with good or evil, or morals or virtue. It's simply what the ruler or the government of a certain society can force people to do. And so if I was a dictator, and I wanted to take all of your property, or enslave you, or kill you, and it was in my self-interest to do that, then that would be perfectly just, according to Thrasymachus' definition. After hearing this definition, Socrates has quite a tough time disproving it. However, he is eventually able to point out the flaws in Thrasymachus' thinking. He starts by getting Thrasymachus to accept that governing or ruling is an art, like the art of medicine, like the art of painting, like any other art. It is, to quote Merriam-Webster, an occupation requiring knowledge or skill. He then continues saying that all arts are only concerned with the perfection of themselves. So the perfection of the art of medicine, for example, would be to advance medical knowledge and to heal more people. The perfection of the art of painting would be to create more aesthetic drawings or paintings. So if we build from this logic that art is only concerned with the perfection or the advancement of itself, then the artist would only be concerned with practicing his or her art. The doctor, for example, would only be a true artist of medicine as long as he or she is practicing medicine. Now, I know what you're thinking. If they're only concerned with practicing medicine, then why do they charge for their services? Or if artists of painting are only concerned with painting, why do they charge for their drawings? Socrates acknowledges this, and he argues that artists also employ the art of pay, which is the art of drawing revenue for one's services. And so the ruler, like any other artist, also derives a self-benefit from practicing their art, but he or she is only truly a ruler as long as they are practicing the art of government or the art of ruling, and that art is not concerned with their self-interest at all. So, if the art of government is ruling justly, and the artist of that art is only a true artist when they are truly practicing that art, then the ruler is only truly a ruler when they are ruling justly. When they're acting in their self-interest or for their self-benefit, then they are not truly a ruler. This completely discredits Thrasymachus' definition, because if and when the rulers of a society, being the stronger, are truly rulers, it is when they are practicing their art, the art of rule. And they cannot be practicing that art when they are acting in their self-interest or for their self-benefit. So, although Socrates is able to refute Thrasymachus' definition of justice, the question now becomes, why should we be just? Thrasymachus essentially argues that we should not, that it is more beneficial to be unjust rather than just. To quote a popular saying, nice guys finish last, that is essentially what he believes. So it is now Socrates' job to defend the virtue of justice and to communicate why it is more beneficial for both societies and for individuals to behave justly. It's important to remember that we still don't have a definition for justice. 3 definitions have been offered, and all 3 have been discredited by Socrates. And so, if we don't have a definition for justice, then we also can't have a definition for injustice. However, based on the context of the story and based on what has been said, I think injustice has come to be understood as something along the lines of acting purely in one's self-interest without regard for others, something akin to that. So, with this general understanding in place, Socrates is able to demonstrate how it is more beneficial for groups and for societies to behave in a just manner. The example Socrates gives is a gang of thieves. If these thieves are truly unjust, if they are truly only concerned with their self-interest and have no concern for others, then they'll steal from each other as soon as they'll steal from innocent people. And obviously this is not good for any group or organization or society. If everyone in that group is only concerned with themselves and has no problem harming others, then that group cannot function as a unit. The same can be said for any society, any business, any partnership. And people recognize this, even in the situation Socrates gives, the gang of thieves. That gang would probably have a policy, they would probably have a general agreement that they would not steal from each other, because they recognize that it is more beneficial to them in the larger scheme of things to not steal from each other, to only steal from innocent people, from people outside of their group. So Socrates is able to prove, without much contention or doubt, that it is more beneficial for groups of people to act in a just manner. The question now becomes, is it more beneficial for individuals to be just or to be unjust? The way Socrates goes about proving it is through this. He says that justice is a virtue of the soul, and by virtue he means that it is the natural state of the soul. It is what we should strive for. By being more in touch with our natural state, by following our true virtues, we are led to true happiness, to peace of mind. Therefore, only justice can bring true happiness, and injustice cannot bring true happiness. The problem with this argument, and what you may have noticed, is that Socrates brings up this concept of the soul without either proving there is a soul or even defining what he means by soul. Does he mean just human reasoning, human consciousness, or some immortal part of us that lives on after our death? Nevertheless, we do have good arguments for why justice is desirable in societies and in groups of people. And we have a somewhat strong but still shaky argument about why justice is preferable and beneficial to the individual. Thank you all so much for watching and supporting the show. We try to have episodes out on a weekly basis. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter at philosophy_tree and like our page on Facebook at facebook.com/philosophytree. Our website is also up and running if you'd like to check that out. And if you have any questions, any comments, or even any ideas for future shows, feel free to shoot us an email, or you can get in touch with us through any of our social networks. We really do appreciate your feedback, and we hope to hear from you soon.